If you don't know Gina, she's had more than 30 years of professional experience in the private sector as a professional engineer, a corporate executive, and principal shareholder of a very large engineering firm who has provided professional services, some of Canada's largest real estate investment trusts, financial institutions, builders, and developers. And so as a result of her outstanding achievements, Dr. Cody was granted the Certificate of Fellowship and the Award of Honor by the Professional Engineers of Ontario. She's the recipient of Award of Merit by the Canadian Standards Association, was awarded the Order of Montreal in 2019, and was named one of the top 25 women in influence in Canada in 2020. She's currently sitting on numerous boards and committees at the university while continuing her involvement as co-chair of the campaign for Concordia, University's most ambitious fundraising initiative ever. So we're really lucky to have Gina Cody joining our event today, and I think we have a lot to learn from her. Introducing as well Charles. So Mr. Charles Bierbreyer is a Montreal native. He graduated from McGill University in economics. After completing his MBA from Concordia, he went on to work as an investment banker for various financial institutions before deciding to become entrepreneur in 2005. And so he opened his own brewery, which is quite fitting considering the fact that his last name actually means beer brewer in German. So Charles took his passion as a home brewer and brought it to market with the launch of his flagship Bierbreyer Premium Ale, and it quickly rose to prominence in the restaurant and foodie scene in Montreal, allowing him to increase his beer portfolio, always engaged in the community, sponsoring events, supporting the arts, great food, and worthwhile causes. Charles gained a reputation for quality and excellence in the industry. In 2017, Mr. Bierbreyer actually joined Concordia's community as entrepreneur in residence, and he now participates in on-campus research, guides, student projects, lectures, and acts as mentors to students, which is us. And I guess I have to introduce myself. So hi, everyone. My name is Thomas. I'm a fourth-year software engineering student. I'm working part-time at a startup working on the ride-sharing model for on-demand transit and working on my capstone, GCES as well, this society. So I'm very passionate about building projects that people love and always moving towards my next goal. And so with that, I think we'll open it up for Charles and I to start the discussion with Gina.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be with all of you, and I look forward to our chat.
Thank you so much. Oh, Charles, I think you're on mute.
Yes, you're right. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks. We're getting all the kinks out. So, Dr. Cody, it's an absolute pleasure to have you join us today. And we wanted to start the conversation and kick things off. A topic obviously dear to my heart, this idea of entrepreneurship. And wanted to know, what does it mean to you? What does entrepreneurship mean to you? And what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs?
Okay, to get into what does entrepreneurship means, if we go back, let's say 100 years ago, if you wanted to be an entrepreneur, you had to have a father or somebody who would give you capital, or you had to have skills. You were silversmith, you could be anything. Then fast forward to today, as you may all know, there are more than 580 million entrepreneurs around the world. So the numbers have just exploded over the last century. Now, what does entrepreneurship means? I guess in today's modern world, what it means is transforming the world by solving big problems, like bringing about social change, creating innovative product that really challenges the status quo. But what I see really entrepreneurs as today, to me, an entrepreneur is somebody who sees possibilities and solutions where the average person sees it as an annoyance and problem. So that is a real entrepreneur, takes advantage of problems and issues and makes it into a business?
Thank you for that. You're absolutely right that we have to, entrepreneurs have to solve these major world problems and innovate and use a different approach. And I guess that sort of leads into the next idea, which is, well, what motivates you to generate these ideas, or how do you get motivated to discover something new?
To me, over the years, when I guess my life has changed. Now I don't have a business. I'm not after profit. I'm just, what motivates me, it's the youth sitting here and talking to you, so for the benefit of the students. So that's what motivates me, to see the kids doing and following something I did and do way, way better than I did. Having said that, when I was working, what motivated me is actually, as a business, I was in a consulting firm, so I had to keep my eyes open. I had to always be ahead of the game. If I wanted to succeed, I had to know ahead of my competitors, so I can advise my clients that is what we can do to help you. So would you want me to help you? So that was by me being involved in Canadian Standards Association. I wrote a number of standards, being involved in the Professional Engineers Ontario, writing guidelines for engineers. So being there and participating in the events, then I was able to know what is required of me and my firm to be ahead. So that motivated me to learn and understand what's going on in my line of business. So to me, anybody who wants to get into business, they have to be ahead of the game. They have to have something that differentiates themselves from their competitor. And that knowledge that comes with it, that understanding of what is out there, and you have to be constantly be educated and educate yourself by any means that is possible. So that is what motivated me and helped me to succeed.
That's super interesting. Yeah, I love to see that motivation. I'm actually curious. So as a student, a lot of us are graduating today, and some of us have the hopes and have that interest in entrepreneurship, but we're really curious, how did you go from graduating with your PhD at Concordia to where you are today? What was the journey like?
I actually didn't finish my PhD when I started working. I left the university after I finished my experiments, and I was ready to write it. And I spoke with my supervisor. And to me, the most important thing for all of you to succeed is when an opportunity comes, grab it. Don't set your goals way too high. Because when you set your goals too high, which is nothing wrong with that, but you will miss the opportunities that are coming across the way from different angles to you, because you're looking up top to that goal. You may get there, but when you set your mind just at one thing, and I hear somebody says, I wanted to be an astronaut and I became an astronaut. That's great. But how many people wanted to be an astronaut and didn't make it? The percentage is so low. So if everybody sets their goals so high, the percentage of failures would be quite large. So I don't want you guys to keep forgetting and losing the opportunities. For me, an opportunity came that I could join the Ministry of Housing. I was in Montreal. I didn't know much about Ontario Building Code, but it was a job to write the Ontario Building Code. And I thought this is a great opportunity for me to understand regulations, acts, and implement what I know as an engineer into the building code itself. So I took it. Within 6 months, I knew it's not a job I want. I was not the motivation, and I shouldn't say this, but it was just a challenge wasn't there. I was driven. I wanted to do things. And when you are stuck in a bureaucracy that doesn't allow you to do more, and be creative, I felt that really I had to leave. But I didn't decide to leave. When I was at the ministry, I encountered, because I was writing regulations, so I had a lot of consultants on my committees, and I guess I must have done a good job in the committees because I was getting offers from all these consultants. They were saying, why don't you join us? Why do you want to stay at the ministry? So I took the best one and I joined the company. And when I joined them, the vision was they had just bought this small company, and it was just a husband and a wife and a son. That was that small that company was, and they had 2 inspectors, and they had brought in also a senior engineer, and they wanted me to join that company to make it work. The revenue of that company when I joined it was $200,000 within the first year. It was a great position for me because I would come in at 6:30 in the morning. I would make coffee in the morning for everybody before they come because nobody else was there. I did everything. I did drafting. I cleaned up the office. It was an office of 10 people, and the senior owner was leaving because he had sold his company, and so he had to transfer everything to me. There was another senior engineer there, but I was like a sponge. I wanted everything. I wanted to learn. So I would stay till late at night, and I was absorbing. I was meeting every client that he had. Within the first year, I took that revenue from $200,000 to $1 million. And the profit was very good. It had great margin,
Wow.
but the opportunity was there. Now, I could have said, oh, I don't want to join this small company. It's just husband and wife and a son, and they're going to leave. And they were leaving. I knew that. But it's just what you make of that. And that is what I want you all to recognize, that being after this big name companies that everybody is inspired by. All the kids want to go to the top companies, Google's and Facebook and Microsoft. It's great. If you get the opportunity, go there, you learn a lot. But that is not all. There are many opportunities out there that you could succeed and you could do very well. So that was my journey. That started me, and then I gradually became a partner because I was doing everything. The company really was me. So I became that a small company, and then there was a bigger company. I took shares in then they gave me another portion. They said, oh, you're doing such a good job, you can have this division. So my divisions were making money, the other divisions weren't. So I got the 3rd division, and then I became the sole owner. So you have the opportunity by working hard and committing yourself. If you do it and you kind of believe in it, you will get there.
That's so interesting. I think you really hit it on the nose when you said, like, there are so many opportunities, and yet a lot of us look to the beaten path, joining companies that are already existing. And to a certain degree, your path did involve some risks. So how did you take on those risks? How did you factor them in? And what's your advice for us when considering different opportunities?
When I left the ministry, it was a full-time job. Nobody would fire me. It was like people would say, are you? And I joined this a small little company, but it was me who wanted to do more. I knew, I believed in myself, and I thought the opportunity there. So to a lot of people, that would have been risk. To me, it was not a risk at all. At that time, I was so excited that I had this opportunity. So people see risk differently that others don't. So you take risks at every time you do a new job, a new area of practice. These are all risks. You take risks on people you hire, your senior staff, you take risk on them. And you don't want to be a control freak at times I thought I was, and I have to admit that, because I check everything because I couldn't afford mistakes. So all of those risks sort of, it just becomes part of your business and part of your DNA, how you're operating and how you're working and how you want to get there.
Wow, that's very inspiring, taking on those risks and the whole mindset of it's not actually a risk to take on that opportunity. Thank you.
Well, I'm gonna piggyback on that. I think you struck something really really interesting. It seems that you're talking a lot about a certain mindset that entrepreneurs have to have, a certain almost positivity. You know, entrepreneurs have a lot of challenges, obstacles, things don't go as planned. And you touched upon it, but if maybe you could just share an experience or talk about this, the mindset and the attitude you need to have as an entrepreneur.
As an entrepreneur, you need to, first of all, you have to know your weaknesses. I think it's extremely important. When I give talks on how to succeed, I say, be honest. And I don't mean not only be honest with others, be honest with yourself and know what are your weaknesses and what are your strengths. When you find your niche as an entrepreneur, what you're good at, you were good at making beer, Charles, so you went after that. You probably would have made a terrible chef. Who knows? But if you set your mind that, you know, I want to have a big, you know, restaurants, and it's not going to work. So you need to know what makes you happy. So if that is what you are and that is what you love to do, I think you will excel in it way more. As an entrepreneur, the fact that you want to make money shouldn't be your driving force. Unfortunately, a lot of startups start with that vision that I am going to do this work because I'm going to make millions. And it's not going to work. That's why we have such a high percentage of startup failures, because probably they set their mind on the wrong thing. If they set it up on what they are good at, they will succeed, definitely, because it's challenging, but they will be beating themselves to make it good. So that would be my advice. Find your weaknesses, you know, be self-aware, and know your strength, your actual strength, not your perceived strength that you think you're having. And I think you will succeed.
Dr. Cody, you're right. I don't think I would have made a very good chef. But you really touched upon it, this idea of passion. And I think growing as individuals and being self-aware, knowing our strengths, knowing our weaknesses, and having that positivity, which leads me to pick up on something you mentioned in an earlier question. You talked about learning. You wanted to learn everything. You were trying to absorb as much. And what advice would you give to, engineers who maybe think, well, do I have the skills to be in business? Do they need, what aspects of education factor in, and do they need to do an MBA? Do they need to study business, or is the engineering enough? How would what would you say to them?
There are many engineers who never did MBA and succeeded and did very well. But, having said that, as a business, if you want to own your business, you have to know how to read financial statements. If you don't know that, you have to take a course on that. So you need to have basic ideas about accounting. But to me, the most important thing for an entrepreneur is being street smart. Really, that street smart gives you the edge to do well, not to be taken advantage of. When your business has got so many things. And one of the important aspects of really being a good entrepreneur is to be a good salesperson, you have to sell yourself. You have to sell your product. Now, if you are not, you need a partner who is good at that. It doesn't, you can be the brain of the business, but you need someone who does the marketing and does the sale. And if that person doesn't do, you need to bring somebody who can sell for you. So there's aspects into the business. My knowledge of accounting was limited. I learned during the business. It's great to have MBA. I encourage students to have it, but having an MBA doesn't make you a good business person. We know a lot of MBAs who really are not good business people. They're not good entrepreneurs. So the degree is not all encompassing, rather than you learning. And I think the university should, and I have discussions with the dean, I think we need to offer a lot more electives in this type of environment for our students, or have more joint MBAs fit for engineering. I know we have it for the industrial engineering now with MBA. That was something that I was really excited about, and I was encouraging the university to get to. I think we need maybe to expand that to more if we can, so they can learn take courses in business as well as their engineering. But really, if you are a software person or you're an engineering, that engineering mind that gives you the foundation for your business rather than business acumen.
Thank you.
I think that's very interesting, because you touched on going and getting those different abilities, reading the financial statements. And on the other hand, you have had quite an academic career, had an academic path, getting your master's and starting your PhD. So which one would you recommend for us as students? Should we look to become generalists and knowledgeable about many different fields, or specialists in a certain field? Which one sets us up for success more?
It's a tough question, because it all depends on the person. So not everything suits everybody. I always believe if I didn't have the PhD, I may not have succeeded as much as I did. That the minute they said Dr. Cody, or I went to a meeting, because being a woman in a male-dominated area of practice, they really wouldn't have listened to me. They would have kind of brushed me over. So having that degree helped me. Now, does it help everybody? I'm not sure. I don't think, I think probably, unfortunately or fortunately, it may help more the female graduates than male graduates, because you guys are accepted as you are, regardless of having a master or a PhD. For a woman, I think that secondary degree will help them to be listened to or be accepted. But being a specialist, I think you need, and you learn that in your business, because I expanded. I made my business, we were a consulting firm. I tried to make it one-stop shop. So when everybody will come, I had senior engineers in every aspect of engineering. Did I know everything? No, but I had basic knowledge. So when I went to a meeting representing the company, I could speak the language. I could know what is right and wrong. And then I will tell them, look, I think this will work, but I have to get my senior guy to look at it and make it work or not work. But that gives you ability. So I think you have to have general knowledge of whatever business you do as an entrepreneur, but you cannot be jack of all trades. You shouldn't do your accounting. You need an accountant to do. It's illegal. You can't do it anyway. But you need to understand, because if your accounting is kind of doing the thing wrong, you have to be able to, the buck stops with you as the owner. So you have to remember that. And having said that, you have to understand, and the basic knowledge of accounting is not difficult. And the rest, again, when you are doing work, you have to understand how that work is shaping, so you can ask the right questions. Otherwise, you will be you will be on the wrong path, and maybe you're producing the product that is not going to work, and you should have known from the beginning. So I think you need to have a general knowledge at a certain level, and then specialize on what you want to succeed at. You have to have a specialization, I think, in anything.
Well, I think you really touched on the important aspect where you can have a specialization, but you should still be knowledgeable enough to run a whole company. So, and of course, you're going to leave everybody's strengths, so you'll have that accountant for your financial statements. I have a question for you when you were in university. For us, like, as you may know, we're very interested in entrepreneurship. Did you actually think that one day you would become an entrepreneur and the owner and head chair of a company?
Not at all. Not at all.
And so was it through the use of the different opportunities that came up to you that you were able to find that path?
Yes, and remember, things have changed. We're talking about 4 decades ago. And the startups, nobody knew what the startup is. Now everybody's talking about the startups. Like, to us, was owning a business, and you say, okay, you either, and as an engineer, how do you own your business when you're just coming out of school? You have no knowledge. Somebody has to teach you. You have to learn. So how can you start your own business as an, structural engineer or building scientist? You have to learn, and it took me years to learn before I owned my business. So for engineers, so a lot of the startups now starts because the whole issue of software engineering, and you can write a code, and we watch what happened with Facebook. We watch these big companies, how do they develop. A few friends came together and Google started, and all of these things. So it kind of motivates everybody, and you say, okay, I can make something like Uber, I can make a Uber Eats, I can make a better delivery system, and so on. So I guess all of this is good, but it's hard to say. Today, to answer your question, at that time, I didn't think about it because it didn't exist. The opportunities arose, I grabbed them, and I knew what to do with them. The minute I joined that company, because that company was giving shares to their employees. That's why I joined them. That's why I left the ministry. I said, okay, this is the place I want to go because I want to have a share in the company. So it didn't take me long. It was 6 months after leaving school, and I still hadn't finished my PhD. I had set my mind up that I'm going to own the company.
Wow. I love the mindset.
I have to echo that sentiment. It sounds like a lot of tenacity and drive and determination, which are all hallmarks of a great entrepreneur. There's often, though, in entrepreneurship, we often don't talk about it, and I was hoping to ask you about communication. Right, a lot of times we focus on the innovation and the products themselves, but what about the aspect of people, relationships, networking, effective communication? How is that factored into your entrepreneurial journey, and what would you say to engineers in particular about this?
Communication is, you hit it, the nail on the head. Communication is extremely important. How you express the issues. I remember many times my engineers would talk to the client, and client would be upset. Then they come to me and say, Gina, the issue is this guy is really upset. I pick up the phone and I call him and I say, okay, these are the issues you have. That's your problem. And so, oh my God, thank you, Gina, for letting me know. And it's on a speakerphone. And my engineer would get upset. He would say, Gina, I told him exactly the same thing. I said, yes, The facts were the same, but the way you expressed it was different. So you have to learn how to make the person understand the issues, and that you are giving them the best advice rather than being just a hard-headed engineer that is the way or the highway. But really, there is no other way, and we have analyzed all these other way. The only way is this one, which is really not cheap, and which is really hard, and I understand the hardship. So you need to explain it, and then they say, oh my God, thank you. So communication becomes the most important aspect of your business, because you are telling, you will have bushfires. When you run a business, there's constantly bushfires. There is obstacles. It's part of the business. If it was that easy, everybody would succeed. But you need to make those obstacles and those bushfires turn into the opportunity. And many of the times that I had problems, I realized there's a problem, and I spoke with the client, I brought it up, and those guys became my best client because they said, oh my God, this woman is so honest. He owns the mistake. So when you own your mistake, when you own your shortcomings, then people trust you, and trust is very valuable in business, any line of business. We're talking, not everybody is like these days that, Facebook can do whatever they want to do, and still they are, a giant. There are very few of them.
That's a really good point. Talking about the communication and the honesty that's required to go into business. You actually mentioned communication quite a lot, and it is oh, Charles, did you want to add something there?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, thanks. So Dr. Cody, you mentioned communication as an important skill, and it does seem like to end up in a position like you are managing a company, you need a lot of these skills. And so as a student, I ask myself, what's the best way for me to go ahead and learn those skills? Is it to start my own company, given that I'm still in school, or would it be to join an existing company? What would you advise students that are looking for guidance?
I think, to be honest, I think you need to learn business. You're not going to learn it at school. There are few people who start and they may succeed. You can have that on the side, or if you think it's really you have some backing or somebody who gives you that foundation. But if you join a similar business, and I don't know, if you have something great idea that nobody has ever thought, and you can't join that business, it's difficult to learn it. But I think if you join a business and learn from that how things are run, it all depends, because engineering and computer science is such a wide variety. You can do anything. But I have a very close friend who is an inventor, and he has done 75 medical equipment inventions. Very wealthy gentleman. But he was an employee. He was he failed his first year. The university kicked him out, and then he went back to university. He finished his mechanical engineering. Then he got a job at this biomed company as a junior engineer, and he really learned the ropes very fast. And then he went out and started his own business because he had the ideas. He went to operating rooms and saw what are the problems. That's an entrepreneur. Looks at the annoyances and problems that the doctors are facing, turns it into opportunity. So what you guys have problem in doing? So the minute they would say, oh, we have difficulty operating this size, or he would go back and think about how I can make this into an invention. So you guys, without starting at that business, I don't think you could have done it by himself. That couple of years of working in that business gave him the opportunity. So I think it's important to have that foundation. Now, if you come up with something great, and I don't want to discourage all these people who have great ideas and they think they have a startups and they're going to be the next Facebook person, go ahead and do it. But I think the majority need to learn the rope properly, and then but have that mindset of entrepreneurship in their brain, that what can I do, what do I want, and then while you're working, learn the ropes. You can't fly a plane without really being in it and knowing how it functions, regardless of how good of an aerospace engineer you are.
Thanks for those very insightful points about skills that students need, that entrepreneurs need. You talked a lot about communication, which we've already discussed how it's the number one, I would say, the number one skill that employers are looking for, that business people need. But something we don't touch upon often, and you sort of alluded to it, but this idea of failure. Of these learning experiences. Would you care to share any stories, or what you think of how failure fits into the entrepreneurial journey to success?
I think failures are great.
Failure?
I think failures are good because it teaches you what not to do. And Alexander Graham Bell said that one of the problem people have, that when they fail and they have a door closed on them, they look so long on that closed door that they don't see all the other doors that opens in the way. He had many failures. He had hundreds of failure inventions, and then he had many success ones. So failures make you who you are. And it's very hard to say, people say, did you have setbacks? Everybody has setbacks, but the setbacks is what makes you who you are today. And they say, oh, what you have done not to do that? First of all, hindsight is 20/20. You don't know what you would have done. And secondly, I think if you hadn't had those problems or those hardship at that, time or period of your work, you wouldn't be the person you are, because hopefully you learn from your mistakes. The only thing is, don't dwell on it. There's a failure, yes, own it, be strong, carry on, have the courage to continue, and find out why did you fail, so you don't repeat that again. The problem some people have, they really don't get it. Some of the kind of people who go bankrupt or the businesses really fail is they don't get it. They have one failure, they repeat it again, and they do something different, but they make the same mistake that brought the first failure. So understand what caused the failure. That's extremely important.
Thank you. Absolutely. I think learning from experiences and then persevering. And as you explained in your journey so far, we don't always know what the destination is, but it's moving in that general direction and learning from it and adapting and changing. And so it's been really informative. I think we may have reached the portion of the of this session where we're going to do a little bit of Q&A, some Q&A, and I think we've had from the audience some questions that have been sent in, and so I'm just going to look at some of these questions that some students have sent and wanted to ask you. And so, well, this is from a Sleeman Yunus, who is a Concordia computer engineering alumni, and he said, how much of your success do you attribute to luck, as opposed to a combination of the other skills and aptitudes and hard work? So I guess a little bit of it is, how much of it is just timing and how much of it is really up to you?
It's a again tough question, because it's just, I think luck has got a lot to do with it. Being at the right time at the right place, but there are many people who are at the right time and the right place, and they just don't grab it. They just don't take it. Luck is a thing that you have to capture. You have to grab the luck and make it success. As I said, many people wouldn't have joined a small little company of 4 people when they had a job in the ministry. So, I could have succeeded. I could have gone up. It was a safe job. But did I take a risk? At that time, to me, it wasn't a risk. It was an opportunity that had the ability to grow. Now, when it comes to luck, when I talk about me joining Concordia and meeting my professor and giving me a scholarship, that was a luck. Definitely, that was a luck. Now, somebody would have said at that era, would say, oh, I want to go to the other university, maybe it's better than this university. So you don't grab your opportunities that come to you because you are not thinking well. So luck has a lot to do with it, but I think a lot to do with yourself as a person to know what is luck and understand it. You can make any small unfortunate situation to your possibility of a success.
Thank you. That's true. We have to seize those opportunities, and really, it's all around us, as you said, right? It's just how do we see, how do we visualize things, our interpretation. So thank you for that question, which kind of leads to the second idea of as entrepreneurs, and I'm sure as engineers, it's all about disruption, right? This is the key word these days. It's disrupting industries, it's changing, it's innovating. And so, this is a question from Aki Iskandar from computer science at Concordia, first-year student. And he says, well, do you believe that startups have a good chance at really disrupting their respective industries, or is it really up to the large corporations and they're inevitably going to swallow up these smaller startups? So I guess what he's saying is, can a startup really do it?
It all depends what that startup is. If you look at the statistics, 90% of startups fail. 75% of the startups that are backed by venture capitals fail. So it doesn't mean that the venture capitals that are buying this startup, they're all going to succeed either. No, but they see it, but when they make it so big that they can afford to lose 75%. And also there is the whole issue of elimination of competition. We all know about that. They take these small guys, they get their ideas, and they really eliminate that business that they could rise and become a big competitor. So it's a sort of, in today's world, it's sad, but it's a monopoly of big tech companies. They're all monopolizing on the industry. And anybody who comes with an idea, they have that big buck to buy them out. And there have been a lot of studies done on that. And unfortunately for Canada, all of these companies move to the south, and then Canada loses it all our brain move out there. So what is the answer? The answer is, should the startup suffer? And it's a very difficult question, and most startups fail because they run out of money. They can carry on for 2 years or 3 years, but they need backing up. So what is the role of government to bring in, and if they want to save these gems in our society? And that is where it comes to universities and the collaboration between the startups and university. This is something that maybe for Canada as a whole is an opportunity to allow startups work with the universities, with the whole vision of how the IP is transferred and who owns that IP. But the students can take a lot of advantage of being in the university institution for their testing, for their resilience, and also not running out of money. But when you finish and you start your own business, you know, you already have all these loans through your university, you're already broke, and you're starting this new business where the money comes, but you have the idea. And you know that idea is going to work. So do you sell it cheap and get out? Or do you kind of persevere? And that is where I think as a country, we have a responsibility. If you want to save them in our own country, I think institutions have responsibilities. I think our federal government and provincial government have responsibilities. And hopefully we're working towards that. Hard to say.
Absolutely. Yeah. We had a really good question in the chat that was asked by Luz Adriana. And as students, we often see ourselves in positions where we're not sure if we even deserve to be in that position. So we talk a lot about the imposter syndrome, feeling where we aren't adequate for the position that we have. And I think you have a unique perspective on that, given that you mentioned how your PhD helped you, but it was still a difficult field as a woman. So how do you take on the imposter syndrome and work over it?
I think it's a very personal issue. It's really a personal issue. How you see yourself. How do you believe in yourself? I think confidence is an important aspect of any person. Being authentic, being yourself is an important, because, you know, Oscar Wilde once said that everybody else is taken, so be yourself, because you can't be somebody else. So all of that, whoever you are, being yourself. But one of the most important thing I always believe is be humble. So humility
Absolutely.
make you grow, make people respect you. And that whole issue of me, I think, has to go away, because I succeeded because I had a great team. It wasn't me. It was a great team surrounding me and giving me that ability to go to a meeting and be full of right information. So the degree is good for you, but the rest of it is really, I always believe, you know, being kind and humble is the best attitude, because nobody is better than anybody else. Doesn't matter you have a PhD and the other guy doesn't, you know, has got no education. We're all equal, we're all the same. It's just some of us are luckier because we were born differently and at different place and had the opportunity to grow.
That's really inspiring, just to have that confidence, have that self-awareness of who you are, and really allows you to power through the imposter syndrome that you might feel. We have a question from Grace from computer engineering. She's in her first year, and she was asking if you had any advice for a person who's more introverted and shy, but still has ambitions to becoming a successful engineer. What advice could you give to her?
Bill Gates was introvert. He always says I'm a very introvert person, so he didn't do bad. He did very well, obviously. So being an introvert is not a bad thing, because you're sort of in yourself. You don't need to be out there. You're not there to make people like you. You are there as a business person. And a business person is an entrepreneur that wants to succeed. But, you know, I can see it sitting at a meeting and you have the right answer and not giving it, so nobody knows that you had all these great ideas. So I think that is a negative, and you have to work on that, because your ideas are your ideas. And that is really, to me, is more self-confidence than being an introvert. You know, there are a lot of at times I may be an introvert, but I'm a very outspoken person. Like this whole introvert and extrovert, sometimes I do a test and I am extrovert. I do another test, I'm introvert. So it's very difficult. Don't label yourself because you're not. But if you are shy, overcome that. You have to overcome that because you are not going to get out there and sell what you have if you're shy and you're going to hide behind other people. You are not going to succeed. So work on it. It's a weakness. The most important thing is to understand what are your weaknesses and overcome them. It's a fear. I always say I had a lot of fear. I still have fear. Fear is something that makes you get better, because when you have a fear, you double check things. You try not to make mistakes because you're so fearful of making mistakes. So you triple check that. There's nothing wrong with that. But what is wrong with that is having a fear and not doing it. Then it's a failure to me, because you're not proceeding and you're not progressing and you're staying where you are. So just find out what is keeping you back, fight it. And, it's amazing. You can tell your brain so many things. There's the whole issue of the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain, the analytic side and the human side of the brain. Having said all of that, you have control over your brain. You can train your brain to become who you want to be. You can tell your brain, I'm not going to let you make me shy. I'm not going to let you give me fear. I am going to overcome it by being strong and, persisting. So I hope I have answered her question, and I'm sure she's going to overcome it.
I think that's a terrific, Dr. Cody, a terrific sort of resume and summary. I mean, the whole aspect of the right side and the left side of the brain and your own determination, right? You determine your future. And I think that's extremely positive advice to give to individuals. And it's been a pleasure to speak with you today. And we have time for one last question. So I'm going to ask one last one, but I think it's appropriate. And I have a feeling I know what the answer is going to be, but Puya Day, Concordia Industrial Engineering alumnus, asked, well, when is the right time to start? How do you know it's time? And so I ask you this question: how do you know, it's time to start your venture?
I think that the time is right. If you are an entrepreneur and you have your mindset, you know it better than anybody else. Nobody else can tell you. You know your time. You know that you are now ready, and that comes by self-awareness. If you're not self-aware and you think you are somebody else that you are not, then you are never going to succeed, because you always have this wrong vision of yourself. You have a wrong understanding of your capabilities. But if you know your niche, you know what you're good at, and you are at a business or at a venture and you say, okay, now I'm ready to do this because everything is there. Now it's very, very difficult, because the financial support, how you're going to manage it, how you're going to sail through the turbulences, all of that becomes an obstacle that only you know that you have the capability. People have financial obligations and they want to do something, but because they have to pay the mortgage and they have to do this and that, they always stuck to what they are doing because of that fear of losing it. But if you believe that your project is a great project, maybe you have to do it in a small bits. Each project is different, and each venture is different. You have to think about it, and hopefully you can, sometimes one of the main thing is the ventures that statistic has shown, single venture projects fail much higher than two partners, because you have to rely on each other. Like three partners, again, the failure rates are less because they all put their efforts together. So sometimes you may need to get partners to go with. So because, you know, a single ownership is very lonely and very difficult. You need somebody to bounce back ideas and a sounding board to succeed as well.
Absolutely. I think the amount of wisdom that we've had the chance to pick at your brain, Dr. Cody, and this was actually, we're very privileged to have had this discussion with you. And thank you very much. I'll go ahead and pass it off to Matthew so he can wrap it up with a closing statement.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me, by the way.
Thanks to you, Gina Cody. So I will just summarize with the conclusion. So yeah, thanks to everyone who took time today to attend. We really appreciate it. To all the students here today, we hope this discussion was insightful and helpful in igniting your own entrepreneurial spirit, which is what we aim to do. We'd like to give a huge thank you to Charles Beerbrier for moderating and helping us throughout the planning of this event. We couldn't have done it without you. Another big thank you to Thomas for also being part of the moderation team today. And of course, huge thank you to Gina Cody for having been so receptive from the beginning. A few of us have heard you speak before, and your story is truly inspiring. We couldn't be more privileged and grateful to hear this new perspective, and I think we all learned the importance of aptitude, tenacity, and the ability to pivot in entrepreneurship. So thanks again. So to everyone here, if you enjoyed today's event and would like to know more about GCES, we'll be having an info session tomorrow that you're all invited to attend. We'll also be continuing the conversation from today in the GCES community Slack. So be sure to check in or join the chat. So all the details for these two things will be sent in an email very soon to you. So to everyone here, thanks again.
Oh, by the way, before you go, I forgot to mention something. I think all of you need to start your network. I am really keen on making a GCES community. So start your LinkedIn, send a request. I will accept any Concordia student. You guys are on top of my list. So send me a link. I will be there for you. And let's get united. Let's create a community that we are proud of being part of, and we can lift each other up. We all can help each other. We want to be the best, and the only way we can be the best by helping each other. Together, we will be much stronger. That's what I want to say at the end. And good luck to all of you. And I look forward to hearing about your successes. And I couldn't be prouder to have the opportunity to sit down and chat with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cody. And I guess we'll end it here. Thank you so much to everyone once again. And thank you, Dr. Cody.
Have an amazing day, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.